And good morning, everyone. Welcome to Sister to Sister. This is a broadcast where we simply share experiences of what it's like to be a Black person in America. And I'm excited to have today with me as my guest an amazing woman. I'm Trish Carr, and I'm one of the founders of Women's Prosperity Network. And our goal is to simply shed a light, turn the flashlight on so that those of us who don't see can see. Because the more we have conversation, the more we talk to each other, the more we learn from each other. You know, we can talk about all the hyperbole and what's going on and protests and whether you think it's right or wrong or good or bad. It all comes down to the individual and how we are with each other. And that's what this broadcast is about. So let me introduce you to my amazing guest today. Dr. Heather Tucker is the founder and CEO of Another Level Living Incorporated, which is a professional training and coaching company. She is a master life harmony coach, speaker, and trainer. And her mission is to guide business leaders to achieving their work-life harmony. Those of you who are in business or in professions, you know work-life harmony is something that we're always working on. And that really creates optimal prosperity and abundance. She uses easy strategies to support her clients in stressing less, yay, increasing energy and strengthening relationships in order to achieve victory and success in life in all areas. She's also this is one of the things she does that's really cool, is she certifies life coaches. So the people that work with other people, Dr. Heather has the background, the experience, the education to equip them with the skills so that they can work with us as individuals so that we can reach success. She's certified over 350, and I know it's more than that, life coaches to date. Her primary areas of expertise are business building, digital marketing, authentic leadership, relationships, emotional intelligence, and PTSD, which many of you are familiar of as post-traumatic stress disorder. She has more than 17 years of higher education, teaching, and research experience, as well as a natural gift for easily working with others. She received her PhD and master's in information technology and in human computer interaction from the University of Maryland, Baltimore. She's also got a BS in computer science from University of Maryland, Eastern Shore, and her work has been published in many peer-reviewed journals, conference proceedings, and books. She is a learned woman. She is a woman who is perceptive. She is an EQ expert about emotional intelligence. I'm so excited to have you here. Welcome, Dr. Heather. Thanks for being with me this morning.
Thank you so much, Trish, for having me. Wow, as you read that, I'm like, wow, there's a lot that I've done within my life.
I know.
That's pretty cool.
I know, you are. And you know, you're mother of two amazing children as well, and the wife of a fantastic husband, military vet as well, which I know is part of your experience with PTSD and learning as much as you did about it. So, you know,
Yes,
you're
absolutely.
balancing a busy life, you know, being a full-time business owner, full-time mom, and full-time wife. So thanks a lot for being here today.
Oh,
I
it's
know,
absolutely my pleasure. Thank you
and
for
I know
having me.
people are going to learn from your experience. So let me just turn it over to you, Dr. Heather. You've been Black all your life?
All my life since
That's
I
what
was
I
born.
thought. That's what I thought.
Well, and I'll tell you that it is something that, like, racism and colorism is something that kids aren't born with. This is something that is taught. This is something where it impacts a kid even as early as they're able to, be aware of what's going on. And what we're experiencing in this country and that we've experienced for so long is visual discrimination. Like, how to discriminate against someone by just looking at or just having a perception of who they are before even getting to know them. We can't really judge a book by its cover. And this, everything that's happening is very near and dear to me for several reasons. I want to start off with my journey of when I was a kid and when I first realized that racism was real. My grandfather was murdered when I was 5 years old. He was a very successful entrepreneur. He sold tires and coal, and was a really amazing leader for his family. And he was tall, dark, and handsome. And when he was murdered, it was as if he was just another Black man dead. And there was no really true desire to be able to go and find out who killed him. And at that time, um, it's almost like there was so much of a shock to the family that we didn't even know how to respond. And so if this is what you're dealing with now, is actually a generational thing, because within the community, especially the minority community, who has been having these issues where people end up dead, they're missing, or who knows what happens to them, and everybody's supposed to just cope and move on.
Mm.
And they don't, and there's not a conversation about it, because the goal is to be able to survive. It's like creating living in survival mode. And what I said to myself when this happened was, be careful not to put yourself out there, because something could happen to you. And as I think, as going on this journey of entrepreneurship, all of that stuff came up, because our businesses are a representation of us. There was a movie that's out right now. If you have not seen it, it's called Just Mercy.
Mm.
And it was an entrepreneur, Black entrepreneur, gets pulled over and accused, and all of a sudden is on death row. There's a history within this country of Black people actually going and having successful businesses, only for them to get burnt down or torn apart, or so many other things. So you have missing people, and especially this target on Black males. I'm married to an amazing, tall, dark, and handsome man. And I'm the mother of another amazing, tall, dark, and handsome man who's going to be growing up. The racism that we experienced in Florida was the exact reason why we left, because I didn't even feel comfortable with my husband going to the grocery store, especially when he was at the height of his post-traumatic stress and going through. So a lot of times people don't necessarily understand that.
You moved from Central Florida, right, to the Tidewater, Virginia area?
Yes,
Are you finding it different in where you are now?
absolutely. Absolutely. In terms of, I'm back home, and this is a rural area. And one of the things there's a difference between the North and the South, and how Black people are portrayed. And like, I remember we went to church one day, and I'm a greeter. My husband goes and sits down next to me, and there's a lady, an older white lady, and she clutches her purse. We're in church. What in the world? And of course, how does that make someone feel? Right? So a friend of mine, she told me one time, she said, Heather, she was a fellow light-skinned Black girl. She said, I feel like we are designed to hate ourselves, because not only is there colorism, but racism, but there's also colorism within the race.
Right.
So culturally, we've created this light is better
Right.
versus Black or dark, and then that creates even more chaos within the race. And all of this is all in our mind, is biases, is by these things that we perceive to be true.
And there's no such thing as the white race or the Black race. That too is in our minds. There are people who came from Germany, Ireland, parts of Africa, parts of the Middle East. The whole white thing is a made up thing. The whole Black thing is a made up thing.
Exactly.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned something about colorism within the race, because a lot of the pushback, sometimes I'll get pushback on, I've chosen to speak up and speak out about racism because I know I don't get it. I wake up white every single day. So I can't possibly understand what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes who's not white. So I'm on a mission to learn as much as I can, but the pushback that I get is, well, Black people treat each other differently just based on the color. If you're light skinned, you're treated differently than black skin. And the other thing is, you may have seen the documentary 13th
Hmm.
on Netflix, and it's about how Black men have ended up in jail over the last 35, 40 years. How we as a culture have demonized Black men to the point where you're more likely, I think 1 in 3 Black men is likely to go to jail, where it's 1 in 17 white men. And you can't tell me that Black people have more crime. It's just not true. But anyway, in that movie, there's even a perception within the Black community that more Black men deserve to be in jail, just like within the white community, that more, it's like it's pervasive. So, how do you even fight that within your own community? How do you deal with that, being a light-skinned Black woman?
So here is you're absolutely right in regards to um, the reality is Black men are targeted. Like whether
Mhm.
people want to see that or not, my husband even tells me stories of how the police harass them when he's 15. Even how we get pulled over by cops is ridiculous. Like it could be one cop that actually treats you with respect, and another one that is totally like trying to egg you on to start something.
Yeah,
Um, and it's almost like in that movie Just Mercy, he says you're guilty before you're even born.
yeah. It,
And go ahead.
no, go ahead. You're right. Keep going.
And the thing is, it's our emotions and the trauma that everything that we've experienced, even from generations, it gets passed down. Sometimes this is what leads to a lot of the mental and emotional difficulties within the community because we're trying to stay focused on making sure that we provide, but yet there's a lot of mental and emotional stuff that we can't really process.
Yeah,
So how do we come together? It's about overcoming even our own biases and also the self-hatred that it creates. So people, what did Martin Luther King say? Like, um, hate cannot drive out hate, only love can do that.
Mhm.
Well, the reality is there's self-hatred or self-destruction even within, it gets projected out to be able to hate other people.
Yeah. It's
And yeah,
That's
go
one of
ahead.
the biggest things is, I always hear people say, well, just pull up your big girl panties, and everybody gets, discriminated against one way or another. And I've worked really hard for what I needed. I worked 3 jobs and I worked my way up the ladder, but we don't have the baggage. We don't have the stories that have been handed down. We don't have the pictures of our great grandfathers being hung from trees. So for us to be able to understand that, for us to say things like pull up your big girl panties, I just want to slap people because they don't understand the kind of internal dialogue you must be having.
Well, so here's the thing. It's about healing that internal dialogue. Like it's really so my talking about the generational issues that happen. My great grandmother, first women is we don't really necessarily we talk about Black men, but there's a lot of oppression when it comes to even minority women and then their
Mhm.
value and then what they're perceived. We see that in the not the lack of attention or difficulty with Breonna Taylor and say her name and okay, so going back to what I was saying, my grandmother, great grandmother, she had 3 girls. One of them had a mental problem. My grandmother had 3 girls. One of them had a mental problem.
Mm.
My mother had 3 girls. And I told her what the other day was she didn't realize is one of them had a mental problem, and I'm talking about me. And really, it's about it's not necessarily, a lot of times we think it's a mental problem, it's really an emotional one. So we were taught, and a majority of the minority population is taught, like, put your feelings in your pocket and keep going. You cannot um, you don't have time to really wallow in your feelings. So how to be able to resolve that? How did I heal that? Was because resolving that internal dialogue. When there's no conflict within, the enemy without can't touch you.
Mm.
And this is why it's important for really everyone to be able to resolve whatever's going on, even internally, step into that personal power. So therefore we can come together in a place of unity and love and aloha and become united.
Yeah, love really is the answer. And I know people think, oh, we're just going to hold hands and sing kumbaya. No, it's about coming from a space of open heartedness, a place of, I'm a human, you're a human. We have so much in common. And right now, we're so divided in so many areas in our country. And this race is simply just one more. You know, last week, you and I were talking, and one of the things that recently happened was the president um, stopped diversity training for federal employees because he believes that the idea of white privilege is anti-American and divisive. So you used to work for the federal government. When we were talking about that, you said one of the reasons you left the federal government was because of how racism was prevalent there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. And yes, absolutely. And so I just wanted to say that it is a lot of that not knowing, like you mentioned before, like a lot of people who haven't experienced it, they just don't know. And there's a lot of people that say, oh, affirmative action is not needed anymore. But it's really difficult sometimes, especially when you're the only one, or there's maybe a few people who look like you within an organization. And it's really about the perceptions and the judgments that happen, not just necessarily within, I saw that within both jobs. I worked for the Social Security Administration and the Army Research Laboratory. And it was really about the culture, even in military, is to tear down people instead of build them up. That's just the culture. I mean, boot
Right.
camp and everything like that. And for me, it was really hard to be in that environment where you felt like no one cared. You felt like no one really understood what was going on and no one desired. It was almost like um, sometimes competition. And in that regard, there's a power in being able to work together to understand the differences. Like diversity training is so very important because a lot of times people are going through stuff that people don't even know what they're going through. And so to the president, I guess, is saying diversity training is not needed. That is so far from the truth. It's actually needed now more than ever. Because in order to understand where we're going, especially when we're trying to achieve something, we have to be able to understand where we've been, how it's impacting us now, and how to be able to move forward.
Yes, exactly. And without that, it's just another open wound, another thing that's just swept under the carpet.
Exactly. So what happens is you have a lot of people leaving, not just the government, but also corporate America, and they wonder why people leave. People leave because they don't feel appreciated, they don't feel supported, and support is not just from the money that comes, it's the overall culture of the organization that will make or break the employee satisfaction.
Yeah, yeah. And
And
that's
right,
true. That's true of everyone in corporate America. White, black, yellow, green, everybody dealing with that. But when you're a
exactly.
person of color, it seems to be exacerbated.
You have to work extra hard. You're told that you have to work twice as hard in order to be just good enough. And see, what happened was I experienced um, sometimes what I would experience in previous jobs is maybe I'm a little too good, and then there's some kind of pushback from there. So they want to keep you in a box, and why try to fit into a box when you were born to stand out?
Yes, yes, yes. Amen to that, my sister. So
Thank you.
thank you. Thank you so much for sharing your experience. As a mother of a young black man. He's 7 years old. He'll be a grown-up black man. I'm glad that you talked a little bit about, you know, how black men are looked at. There's a man on America's Got Talent right now. His name is Archie. I don't remember his last name. And he's a singer. And he was in jail for 37 years for a crime that he didn't commit, because they had to get somebody, and they found him, a black man, and put him in jail for 37 years, and only recently found out from DNA evidence that he was cleared. So I love that you brought up the movie Just Mercy. And I really recommend it to everyone. You can watch a movie. You know, a movie is an easy way for you to see reality and what happens for people. And yeah, we all have our trials and tribulations, but being born black shouldn't be making it harder. And that's all we're saying about the whole conversation about white people having more opportunity and more privilege than black people. It's the same as male privilege. It exists. Men have a leg up simply because they're a man. Believe me, I used to work in customer service. I can't tell you how many times a person who was irate would say to me, "Let me speak to a man." Literally say that to me. So these privileges exist. And by pretending they don't, we actually make it worse. So thank you, Heather. I really appreciate it. Anything you want to share with us before we go?
Yeah, there was just one thing. Because I was asking or as you were talking and as I was listening, it's not we can't control the things. This is the whole core of emotional intelligence. We can't control the things that are happening to us externally. And even going back to the experience that I had in the interactions with people, one of the biggest philosophies and assumptions that I operate by is people are just doing the best that they can. So when they learn better, they do better. And this is the reason why you have this platform. And also, it's about creating that awareness. The more that we're able to create that awareness of what's going on, then we can ask, how do we respond? There's a power in our response to it. You saw what was happening out there and you took this action creating sister to respond. And I remember being blown away. Like, the whole reason I started my company was because of the Trayvon Martin incident. Like, every time that there would be a situation happening, it would take me out of my emotions and I would be paralyzed and frozen and couldn't move forward. Like, why is this happening? Then my response was to create this company and support people in standing into their power. Because when they stand into their power and they stand into their personal freedom, when we all do that, then we can be able to come together even on more than one accord. So it's about that solution. So I pose to anyone who's listening, what is your response? What are you being called to do? And are you doing it? And if not, do it. Because if not now, then when? And if not you, then who?
Amen to that. Dr. Heather Tucker, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us today, for sharing your stories, your experience, and your wisdom. I appreciate you so much.
I appreciate you. Thank you so much, too.
My pleasure. And thank you all for watching. Thank you for being a part of the solution. Listen, if there's anything you can do that's easy, it's just have conversations with people about what you're thinking, what you're hearing, what you heard here today. The more dialogue we have, the more conversation we have, you know, that's one of my favorite words, the better we all are for it. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Dr. Heather, for being here. Hope you all have a wonderful day. Appreciate you all. All right. Thank you. So this live stream is over.
Thank you. Okay,
That was
awesome.
great.
That was great.
Oh my God, your ending was perfect. Like you mic dropped it with the, if not you, then who? So it was great. Thank you.
That's my mom. That was my mom. She gave me that. I'm a product of 2 PhDs. And so, yeah, it's kind of pretty cool.
Beautiful. All right, let me let you go to work. It's 10:15. Thank
All right,
you.
I don't want to go. Thank you. I
I know,
appreciate
great
it.
conversation. Like I said, I always wanted to go 15, but we always go longer. So it's just so much, so rich.
It was
So
perfect.
perfect. Thank you.
Yeah,
Have
I
a
appreciate it.
fantastic
I
day.
wanted to
You want to what?
thank you. I just wanted to tell you that one of the other things that I thought about was because my name was Heather, like people would assume, oh, Heather's a white name. So
Right.
when I would apply for something and I go in there, the looks, it would
Yeah.
always be like, yeah,
Yeah, that's a good one too. A good one too.
yeah.
All right,
It's pretty
Heather.
interesting. I just want to say real quick, I appreciate you. I
You're
love you. Thank
welcome.
you for doing this because, sister, you're doing the work. You're doing the beautiful work of us coming together. And we need that more than ever now. So thank you.
Thanks. Most days it's my pleasure.
And you enjoy yourself. You have a great day too, okay?
I will. Take
All
care.
right. You too.
Bye bye.
Bye.